Hi, this is Otto Penzler. I'm at the Mysterious Bookshop in New York for our weekly show about mysteries and collecting. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite writers as well as one of my favorite people, Robert Crais. Robert Crais wrote his first book, or his first book was published, I can't believe it, 34 years ago, 1987. And it was a paperback original. It was nominated for an Edgar and some other awards, which it won, called The Monkey's Raincoat. I remember picking that book up and reading it because the title was so bizarre. I had no idea what I was going to get. And it was an Edgar nominee, so I thought it was going to be pretty good. And I found myself falling in love with Elvis Cole, his Los Angeles-based private eye, who was the hero of that book and who then became the hero of many, many more books. The later books started to develop a secondary character in the early books, became a major character, and it was Elvis's friend, kind of partner, Joe Pike. Elvis is an easygoing, self-deprecating, funny guy. Wears Hawaiian shirts, makes fun of himself all the time, calling himself the world's greatest detective, and he's just like goes along with life and tries to do the right thing and help people on a regular basis. He doesn't get paid half the time, although he's a private eye. He's really interested in helping people. Joe Pike is what happens when society fails. He's been described as a sociopath by reviewers, but he's not. He's a very, very tough guy who has no problem killing whoever needs to be killed. He's relentless and fearless, and they make a great team. They're so opposite, but they're like brothers. They're so close to each other. Now, The Monkey's Raincoat, as I said, excuse me, came out as a paperback original in America, and it's very hard to find really sharp copies for collectors of paperbacks. People read them to death. It's easier to find hardcovers, even though they have a much smaller print run, because people take a little better care of them. So it's a hard book to find. It was published in England as a hardcover by a small publishing house called Crais Books. And there was only one printing. I could show you that it's a first edition, but in fact, they're all first editions if they're done by Crais, because they never did a reprint. It was done, that's the title page, and then the copyright page doesn't show a reprint, but anyway, it doesn't matter with this book. It's quite scarce because it was such a small print run from this small house, and it's probably one of the 2 or 3 most difficult books to find in nice condition. As a first edition, it's $250. Because Crais started to have great success, a very rare thing happened. His book was reissued in America as a hardcover. And there's the first American hardcover. It was published by Doubleday. Bantam published the original, and they're both part of the Random House empire. And there's his signature. This is a signed copy. And the copyright page will have, as we've talked about for many other authors, if you look, you'll see the number sequence goes down to 1, meaning it's the first edition, but really what it means in this case is it's the first American hardcover edition. Because it's a reissue of a paperback, I don't think the publisher expected to sell a lot of copies, so this is quite scarce also. It's also $250 because it's a very desirable edition of a very scarce book. Crais's success continued at a very rapid rate and he wound up being named the Grand Master by the Mystery Writers of America in 2014. Here's his second book, which is a very different look from what most of his books look like. This is actually collected as a bibliomystery, and so it's got an area of desirability for more than one area. There's the signed title page, and I don't think I've ever seen a second printing of this either. This is also by Bantam, and there's on the copyright page you see the numbers sequence down to 1. This showed the success of the first book, because his second book went from a paperback original to a hardcover, and that's it. His third book, and probably the scarcest of the Elvis Cole novels, is Lullaby Town, still published by Bantam. Here's an advanced proof copy of it. This is his third book. And here's the book. All of the books that I'm showing you, by the way, are immaculate. They're in perfect condition. This one is inscribed. And signed on the title page. And once again, the copyright page will show you the number sequence goes down to the number 1 to show you that it's a first. Because it's so scarce, this again is also 250, which seems to be the number of the day somehow. The proof of this book is very, very scarce. There are very few proof copies around. It's in immaculate condition, and it's $100. Here's a stack of books. They're published by various publishers, but they're always easy to tell. I won't open every single one of them to show you. If there's a second printing, the copyright page will indicate that, either by having a number sequence that starts with the number 2, or it will say second printing. Because he was so collected, and rightly so, there are limited editions of his books, a lot of them from different publishers. Here's one for LA Requiem, which may be my favorite of his books, but not necessarily. But I like them so much, it's hard to pick one. But I love this one. And there's the limitation page, and this was published in the UK by Scorpion Press. And well, you see the limitation page, so you know it's a first printing. And again, in perfect condition, signed, and it's $150. At Mysterious Press, or Mysterious Bookshop rather, we also did some limited editions. And I've just taken one as a sample, The Promise, which we publish in these very handsome bindings. The blue copies are numbered. They're limited to 100 copies, numbered and signed by the author. I think we've done 4 different titles, almost all of which have sold out. Somehow this is copy number 2, and it remains. It's possible that I bought it back, because I buy collections of Robert Crais books whenever I can, and sometimes we buy back a book that we published. Here's the lettered copy in a red binding. And these are limited to only 26 copies. The numbered copies are $150, and the lettered copies, since there are only 26, are $275. And more limited editions from Crais. He publishes in New Orleans. And this is Cahill, who has his publishing company in Huntington Beach. handsome books. But I just want to show you too that because serious collectors like proof copies, as I did for many years and when I was collecting, here's a proof copy. You can see the difference between Lullaby Town, his third book, which I showed you, very simple, plain wrappers, and as he becomes more popular, here it is, bound with full color covers as advanced proof copies, advanced reader's copy, it's called an advanced reading copy, but they're uncorrected proofs. But these are done in much larger quantities. By the 2-minute rule also is very simple. And this is really also extremely uncommon. Here's the advanced proof copy of The Monkey's Raincoat, the Doubleday edition, which is the first hardcover edition. Normally you would send out proof copies to reviewers or to major book buyers, wholesalers, library systems, and so on. And all you want them to do is read the book. So you would think that they might have just sent copies of the paperback instead of going through the cost of producing proof copies. But I guess they were sold out of books. Although it's been reprinted relentlessly, and it's still available happily. The independent mystery booksellers of America picked The Monkey's Raincoat as one of the 100 most important books of the century, which is a pretty terrific honor for any book. And this is scarce, but not everybody wants to collect proof copies, so it's only $25. And then again, another proof copy for Indigo Slam, advanced reading copies, using obviously the same cover illustration and done in fairly large quantities. Anyway, this is the great Robert Crais and the great Elvis Cole and Joe Pike. You read them if you don't collect them, at least.